league finding, right? Because even rat hierarchies, and they're not known for their moral nature, rats, there's more this element of play. And play is actually a specific mammalian circuit. And, in a conversation like this, there's plenty of play too. And that's one of the things that makes it extremely, and so that animating spirit is also the spirit of play.
Right.
And play is the manner in which we experiment with manifestations of the ideal. That's what play is.
Right. And the point is that it's organic, it's, as it were, it's spirit driven, it's not rationalized, it's not imposed, as it were, from the top down. There's a kind of organized chaos, as it were, chaos permitted within certain parameters. And I think that's what any good thriving university ought to aim to be, as it were.
That's what a walled garden is
right.
Is exactly that. It's the bordering of a zone where chaos can manifest itself creatively.
Right. Right. Well, then another way of saying it would be that the walls of the university, the walls of any thriving intellectual culture, should be the walls of a walled garden. That, as it were, that the chaos, as it were, has parameters, but there should be complete freedom for the people who the university is entrusted with research and teaching to test and to pursue their ideas. Some of them may be disastrously wrong. Others will end up being brilliantly right. And there will, over time, be a kind of, precisely through this freedom, precisely because it's implausible to suppose that to guess that 3 or 4 brilliant academics will have all the answers to all the questions. There's a kind of a sort of spirit of intellectual inquiry that animates that seemingly quite chaotic process, but it's what yields
I think
extraordinary.
That is. I mean, I've had a vision of the proper father within a family as he who sets the parameters within which play can occur. So when children develop, their play is unbelievably important. I mean, that's how they structure themselves and their social relations. And so if they're deprived of play, Panksepp demonstrated this too. Rats that are deprived of play, their prefrontal cortices don't mature properly, and you can use attention deficit disorder drugs like Ritalin to combat that behaviorally. And then if you let them play, they have a burst of play and their brains develop. And so the proper paternal spirit sets boundaries which wall out too much chaos and allow playful endeavor to manifest itself within that walled enclosure. And that's part of this animating spirit as well. And that's not power. And it has this spontaneity and this capacity for generation of spontaneous order that you described.
Yeah. And look, I think that's also where belief systems can help. That is, but belief systems that are not too prescriptive. And so what we're looking for are certain norms, guardrails, coordinating that help to animate these coordinating mechanisms that are not too prescriptive.
I want to talk to both of you about this then. So, if you look at how people describe their religious belief now, they're not going to church and they're not admirers of dogma, but they describe themselves in the majority as spiritual. So there's this spirit dogma paradox. Now, the problem, and you see this even in people like Sam Harris, because he's technically atheistic, but he's very interested in spiritual pursuits. He doesn't want to concretize that, and maybe that's because it would then become prone to rational critique, and he doesn't want to lose it, right? But the thing is that you need dogma. Like Osiris and Horus, they're part and parcel of the same thing, and you can't move ahead without axiomatic presuppositions. The issue is they have to be, it seems to me, and maybe this has to do with the Christian idea that you're supposed to look for the evil within. So you're destined to operate with a set of axiomatic presuppositions. You can't help it. You can't make a move forward without it. But you should be cognizant at the same time that in many ways that you don't understand that you're radically wrong. And the play then is something like an exploration of that.
Yes, absolutely. I don't know if Nigel had any thoughts on that, but yes, I think I think that's absolutely right. I mean, I think it was Chesterton who once said that the only alternative to the doctrine of original sin is the doctrine of original perfection. It's a kind of, what do we have a tendency towards? Tendency towards the good that has been corrupted towards the bad. So I think, there is a sense that certainly within most established religions, that there's a kind of, generally speaking, an account of human nature that has a story to tell about what the evil within us is and what that tendency is. And I think that injects, even in the kind of worst chapters in the history of institutional religion, a certain humility, a certain healthy pessimism in the possibilities of human being, that there's sort of a kind of an estimation that there's going to be fragility, there's going to be a lot of mistakes, and this is very, very different from the kind of dewy-eyed, optimistic account of human nature that we get from the Enlightenment. That all that needs to be done is to clear away superstition, and then we can look forward to, as it were, the sunlit uplands of a perfect utopia where everyone is kind and nice to each other. The graveyards and the concentration camps of the 20th century have certainly undercut that hope. So yes, I mean, this idea of fragility and that sense that society somehow needs those sorts of guardrails, those parameters that will anticipate mistakes and human frailty is crucial. Governments struggle to deliver that.
Well, let me ask Nigel a question here that comes out of this discussion. Nigel, you talked earlier about the idea that a religious belief in some sense could be an inoculation against idolatry and ideology. And so I want to ask you a bit more about that, but with a twist on this idea about evil, because one of the things that I don't like about the claim of oppressive patriarchy is that it identifies evil externally in the social world, right? It's that malevolence exists. So that's kind of an original sin variant, the idea that there is in fact malevolence and evil. Well, where is it? Okay. Well, it's in society, and then it's in this patriarchal spirit. It's like, well, that's really dangerous as far as I'm concerned, because, well, if it's someone else and they're evil, then all the restraints are lifted. And we've seen that many, many times in the 20th century. And there's the Christian idea, I believe, and I don't think it's limited to Christianity, but it's very well developed in Christianity, is that the best place to search for evil is within. And you're likely to find plenty of it as well, and it'll keep you occupied if you